Within this lesson, we're going to talk more about the image and adding in the image within our canvas. So in the previous lesson, we looked at, and we've got this image where we've got all of our different icons that we're going to be using within the game are contained within one image. Now, of course, you could have multiple images, you could load them all in, but what I'm doing for the purposes of this course is I'm going to just use this one image, and I'm going to pick out certain pieces of the image that I'm going to show on the canvas. So for the Pac-Man, I'm going to show just the Pac-Man. For a ghost, I'm going to show a ghost, and it's actually going to make it a little bit easier for me when I'm actually doing some functionality within this, that I'm not going to have to load multiple images. I've got it all contained within that one image, and as we saw in the previous lesson, we load in that one image and we're ready to go and use it. So now, in order to actually add that image, it's going to be really easy, because all we have to do is do the method drawimage, and this is going to do the whole functionality of the image. We just need to answer a few vital pieces of information, and the first one is when we do draw image, where is it getting the image source from? So I'm over here, we've loaded it into the object my main image. So all I'm doing is just connecting main image that we've loaded previously, and I'm drawing it out. And then here I have to specify where I want to draw it. So if I want to draw it 0, 0, so this would be right in the corner. So going back out to our example, so we're pulling that right up in the corner. If I wanted to move it over on the x coordinates, I could do that, and then the y coordinates, I could move that around as well. So there are a bunch of additional parameters that you can add in. So this is by default, this is the simplest that we can do. So we can also add in second set of parameters, and we can also add in additional parameters within another line where we can be picking out a certain piece of it. So I've got an example here within CodePen.io. So this is a CodePen.io that's, I can provide a link for this as well. So here we've got an example of, we've got our draw image, and so what we're doing right now at the moment is we're just drawing the image as it is. We're moving it over, so ours was, I think, 40 by 0, so we're putting it over here. So as you saw, when we did load it, actually there was a whole bunch of additional parameters. So the next one is going to be the width and the height of the image. So if I wanted to have an image 20 by 20, and I'm taking that whole entire image, I'm making it 20 by 20, I can do it that way. So if I wanted it 120 by 120, I could do that. If I wanted it even larger, do 400 by 400, and so on. So this determines the height of the image that we're going to be using. So the next set of parameters is actually going to be, it's going to actually change this around quite a bit. So what we want to be doing is we want to be able to pick out one of these ghosts here, or actually the Pac-Man, and isolate that particular image and bring that into our canvas. So we need some more coordinates here that we need to add in. So the next set of coordinates that we're adding in is going to be the x and y coordinate of the top left corner of the sub-rectangle of the source of the image. So if I wanted to pick out, so we look at the source of the image, so this is this image over here. So maybe I can pull that onto a separate window here, and we can see that this is the source of the image. And maybe I want to just get the rhinoceros's face. So just roughly looking at this, When I go into the source of the image, I can roughly pick out that this is probably about 60 pixels in, this is probably about 150 down. So I'm going to just go with that, and I'm going to go 60 in and do 150 down. And as we see, we don't really see anything happening up here because these have actually changed now. So we're no longer looking at these coordinates being the width and height of the actual destination canvas image. We're looking at the source image next, the width and height of the source image. So I'm going to pull in, and so now we see that if we take the coordinates 60 by 150, so that brings us actually just into right about there, and we take 10 by 10 of that and we output it as 4, so maybe we'll just change this to 100 by 100. So we're actually outputting this 100 by 100, so it's actually bringing in the face a little bit more as well. So just to go over this again, because this is actually going to be fairly complex. So if I want to pick out, so the first parameter there is fairly straightforward. It's just going to be the image. And the next 4 are going to have to do with the source image. So the X and Y of the source image, and then the width and the height of the particular piece or chunk of information that we're getting. So even if I reduce this, we see that it actually stretches it out, because now all I'm doing is I'm selecting out 20, a piece of 20 from there, but it's being elongated to 100 when we go out to our destination. So if I was to bring this down to 20, then if these two match, then we're actually picking out a slice of that. So this is 150, so it doesn't necessarily match with that. So again, this is fairly complex, but visually what we're going to do here is that we have to look at the source first, and then we have to pick out the destination from our own image. So going back to our source code and trying to pick out, so now that we've got the coordinates there, so now we have to actually update this, and we can set a width and a height. And pulling out all of that information here, so this is where the position on the image that we're trying to pick out. So this is 320, the point at 320. The next point is Y, so that's 0. So that's right up here is where we're picking it out. We want to do 32 picks across, 32 picks down to pick out that particular piece of the image. So that's where we get that 32 and 32. And then the other 4 numbers are where we're locating. So 0, 0 is where we're locating. So if I wanted to set it at 50 and 50, I could set that. And if I want to keep the Pac-Man the same size, I can do 32 and 32, and that's going to shrink our Pac-Man down. So we can actually change this and make our destination Pac-Man as big as we want. So we can make them really big if we want, and we can bring them all the way back down to his default size there. So I'm going to stick with a size of 32. And then in the next lesson, we're going to be talking more about how to make this figure dynamic, and in order to start moving them around the screen and start having some added functionality to our game. But this is how to pick out the image, and so loading that pack.png and then isolating that particular piece of the image and extracting it out onto the canvas.